Hello, everybody. I don't know, we are just at the brink of noon, so it's a good morning, good afternoon to all of you, okay? Because I think it's just 12 o'clock. Um, I'm very happy to be here. A very apt topic has been selected after all the kind of sessions which we have had. Healthcare institutes or healthcare management systems normally have to talk about, eventually it's all resource based, okay? So we have to talk about consumables, we have to talk about medicines, which was the discussion going on around for the last 2 days, okay? So we were in and around it. So today we talk about supply chain. I've got a very eminent jury members here on the panel, Mr. Sojwal, Dr. Sarvadekar, and I think Shika and Ms. Gaurav. Shika has already given the introduction, so I think I'll skip that part. Shall I?
Yes, please.
Shall I, Shika? Right. So, coming to supply chain management and supply chain transformations, which is the topic of discussion today, I would like to say a few words before I initiate and ask questions on what is supply chain management. What you think is supply chain management in a healthcare or any organization. Could I get some small answer from anybody? Supply chain management? That small term, supply chain management, what does it imply? What does it mean?
There's a hand there.
Yes, absolutely. At the end of the day, it is the right product at the right time, at the right location, okay? And product availability is the basic core of the whole supply chain management system. That is what we're going to talk about. Yes, ma'am? Right location, right price. Very true, very true. Right price.
Can I?
Okay, right quality. So we have right quality, right price, right time, right location, and most importantly, the right person and the patient, okay? So supply chain management, over a period of time, in the last 20 years that I have been into it, I have noticed has gone through a lot of changes, you know. Initially, we used to manage all these supplies on paper. It was not so automated. Things were not so analytical. We didn't have so many technologies and tools to go with. More and more evolvement of the whole thing has happened. You know, supply chain basically is the core of any institute or any organization. It's the upstream and downstream from the provider to the patient at the end of the day. So, what exactly are the implications of a good supply chain system? A good supply chain system is eventually going to help us or help the organization, any organization for that matter, to reduce its operational costs, improvise on its cash flow, and give a lot of customer satisfaction. With this, I think I will turn to the panelists. We'll go for the discussion. Mr. Sojwal, I would like to ask you, or you could throw some light on the fact that. Hello. Supply chain management has gone through a lot of transformations over a period of time. In the last 1 decade, we have had a lot of changes. A lot of new technologies have come in. So what are the strategic improvements that supply chain transformations and supply chain management has gone through? And in a healthcare institute, how would you apply it?
Sure. Thank you. So, first of all, I want to. We are the last panel, I think, before the session ends. So we probably between you going back home from wherever you come. So we'll try to keep it within the limits, the time limit that we have. Sorry. Secondly, before I talk about supply chain transformation, I also want to give my point of view, on what is supply chain in a hospital network, right?
Right.
A lot of questions, answers did come, and the way I look at it is supply chain for us is, it actually starts from the manufacturer. Let's take the example of a drug. So from the manufacturer to what distributor to what distribution channel, coming down to the hospital, so the entire purchasing process over there, and then the stores management, inventory management, moving into the hospital through various, departments, etc., up to the point of where it's ingested by the patient. I think that's the broad spectrum what kind of comes under supply chain within the hospital network. It's anything and everything that happens from there to where it gets in the patient is kind of part of what we and our teams do. So with that, again, just a little bit of repetition of what you said. Cash flow management is where supply chain brings in a lot of value, either through payment terms negotiation with suppliers, extended payment terms, for example, or, on the operational side in inventory, how many days of stock would you want to have, having that. So there's a cash flow element to it.
Right.
The second thing is, purchasing, so bringing money back into the business. One way the money comes is, of course, to your customers, but the other way it comes back is through, negotiating with suppliers on the right price, right? So that's the other element that we have on supply chain. And thirdly, of course, patient centricity, making sure we have the right product at the right time, in the right quantity available, especially relevant for us in the hospital industry, where usually the customer is a patient who is already sick, and you don't really want to make it more troublesome for them for, having to stay longer in the hospital or in the procedure room just because you don't have the right, drug available. So there's a lot of relevance, I think, the supply chain team brings to a hospital network, to any network for that matter, but also to a hospital group. That's at a high level what I would say.
Right, right. Just a little bit more, if you could elaborate on what are the changes that have happened in the last probably decade. See,
So-
basically, I mean, what I'm trying to say is that we have had a lot of changes by way of supply chain has been constantly evolving, and we need improvements. So, by way of operational excellence or by way of automations and technologies.
So I see there are three elements that we need to look at when we try to, put a strategy around supply chain. Number one is having the right organization in place within supply chain. You probably need to have an external facing team, a team of whom we can call simply as buyers or category managers, who kind of, are the external face to the organization, who negotiate with suppliers, bring the right products, bring in the right suppliers as well, do the contracts. The second set could be a set of people who are the internal facing, who coordinate internally, about what is required, budgeting and analyzing, governance type of a thing. The third thing I would look at is actually the core supply chain, which is actually placing orders, bringing the material, following it up, the GRNs. So one is having the right structure in place. Second is having the right processes. So that's where the operational efficiencies come into place. Do we have a formulary, for example? Is it there only for pharmacy, or is it also there for consumables? Okay. It's great to have a formulary, but are you following the formulary? Are your doctors, aligned? Are you, making sure that when you create the formulary, you bring in the clinical elements into it, so that, we don't really deviate on the efficiencies or efficacy of the drug, rather than going behind price. So those are the, that's the
aspects which
third thing is consumption efficiencies. Are you really, what needs to be billed to a patient, for example? Is it getting billed, or is it getting billed as a department consumption, which essentially becomes an expense, rather than a revenue generation? So there are consumption efficiencies that we need to take account. And the last thing I will say is tracking all of these, having a strong monitoring mechanism, not just within the supply chain and procurement function, but also coordinated with the operation sides of the hospital.
Very
so there's
true.
three elements I would put in that need to
Mr.
be
Srival. It is
taken
very
into
true.
account.
Yes, yes. So actually, I would go to Mr. Dr. Sarvadekar. Actually, what he said rightly is that when you try to integrate in a healthcare integration of the clinical aspects and the flow of materials, resources, what you're using for the patient. If you can integrate those things, you can align them, then you can get a trend analysis by which you can probably come to better outcomes. Therapeutic outcomes can be better, your financial outcomes for the patient as well as you can be better. So, but Dr. Sarvadekar, I mean, what would you think? I mean, all hospital healthcare management systems should be following a proper list of WHO list of, or the country list of, national list of essential medicines and emergency stocks and all that, wherever required, regulatory wise.
Yes.
How important it is for a supply chain, a good supply chain management.
Right. So now, as we have rightly pointed out, the right product and right price, as you said. So that is the basis of National Essential List of Medicines, what we call is the NLEM. which is based on WHO list of essential medicines. We have got about 372 items which can be in a formulation, say around 800 will be there. So this is the core item that each and every hospital should have 24/7. Unless that, the hospital cannot run. So this is the basis that these should be the core of your formulary. So what is formulary? Formulary contains two important parts, and as he has rightly said, the first part will be these core items, that is what we will call as NLEM. The second part will be NLDM, that is National List of Desirable Items. First is essential, second is desirable, because clinicians need to get a choice. So that will be the second list. But as a hospital, in private or public sector, our first priority is essential drug to be made available 24/7. The desirable items, there may be different policies to decide on that. Like in government, there is a different policy, and in private, they will go for brands or physician choice like that. Then second part of the formulary will be SOPs, that is standard operating procedures, because that gives the basis. What happens? Something like price control. So there is a price control. Some items need to have a price controlled, and you cannot charge above that. So this second part will have SOPs with regulatory matters. Now, what are the regulatory requirements of a hospital formulary or hospital pharmacy? The first is a retail license. So you need to have a retail license, the regular renewal of it. And second is you need to don't have to charge the more than NPPA, that is National Pharmaceutical Pricing Policy, and or drug price control. There are two. So all the prices have been controlled under NPPA for essential drugs. Essentially for all, the price have been fixed, so you cannot charge more into that. So this is the regulatory item number 2, that is price control. First is the licensing, retail license. Third is getting license for narcotic drugs, quantity sanctions. So that is the third. And fourth will be if you are stocking the items like explosive, oxygens and all those, you need to take a license from Director of Explosives. So these 4 regulatory mechanism has to be in place and need to be spelled out in the formulary, because that will be the second part of your formulary. First is the list of the drugs with prices. Second part will be these regulatory mechanisms that you need to follow, because most of the time management may not be know, but pharmacy should know what are the regulatory things that need to be followed. The third part will be SOPs, standard operating procedures, how you select the items, how you go for selections, that is procurement. Second, how will you store it, proper storage conditions, then proper warehousing conditions, then supply chain, as you said, from manufacturers to the ward, how you meant the chain, cold chain, and whether the supplier has observed the cold chain. It is very important, because I have visited so many C&F agents godowns.
Expiry management also.
Yeah. Yes, and third is that expiry management, and last will be the medication management, what we call it as a use level, rational use of drug. So what will be the criteria for antibiotic policy, rational infection control, which disinfectant should be used, and which antibiotics should be reserved antibiotics, which will be used into. So all these forms a documentary part of your body. And if it is in place, that will help you in a legal standings also. Like what happens if suppose you don't have a patient, you need give simple example like medication error. In cardiology department, you give different contrast medias. And there are some patients which are hypersensitive and may end up into the anaphylactic shock. So that particular procedure, if not followed by the cardiology department, having into place checking by skin test of contrast media and patient dies, then you will have into trouble. But if it is spelled out in your formulary that each and every drugs need to be, like penicillin hypersensitivity, it has been tested and it need to be documented. If suppose a patient dies in a cardiology department and then you are not able to document it, that you have taken a hypersensitivity test, in spite of that there was no reaction, but patient died, then you are saved. So formulary is a very important aspect to save you, because it will spell out what is that your SOPs and what things that you need to be followed. So this is very important. So formulary has to be followed and it has these three sections.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Sarvarekar. I think he has emphasized no less words about how important a formulary is to be maintained for any healthcare institute. As we all said before, with the right quality of products in place. When we talk of all these quality aspects, which eventually go to make a good supply chain, so it is all about having the right product in the right quantity on your stock or on your shelf, at the right time. So when we do all these things and we try to link it up to the patient and the clinical aspects of usage, we also have to talk about the quality aspects and the tools which we would use to sort of audit and process all the quality stocks of your inventories which are built up in your, may it be consumables, may it be drugs. So I would like Gaurav to sort of highlight on that a few points, if you can, on the quality aspects and the audit processes which you will probably use as a part of a good supply chain management system.
Thank you for the question. I think I would just pick it up from what my co-panelists spoke about, and I would focus more on the end user perspective. So when we look at the supply chain, it's not only most of the time supplies of just the medications, but it would also include your equipments, the consumables that we use in a hospital. So what we would look at is, first, what's the decision criteria of picking up that particular medication or an equipment, from which organization or which manufacturer, and what are your criteria to select whether this is the right one that I'm picking it up or not. And I think Sir spoke a lot about the formulary on, checking up the medications and stuff. Have you, as an organization, have you looked at the basic studies about that particular drug, the incidence of that drug, how it's happening, across the world as far as its usage is concerned? Similarly, when you look at the equipments, you look at Similarly, for the equipments, you look at, any kind of adverse events that have happened related to that particular equipment. You might want to visit different hospitals or healthcare organizations where such similar equipments of similar make are being used, and what's the experience of those people there. Once you get that whole thing in place, obviously that whole, either it's a medication or a consumable or an equipment that comes inside your organization, and then you look at how do you, consume, how do you use it, and what do you do with that in your hospital. Now, from the end user's perspective, again, looking at how these, if we just speak of drugs, how these drugs are stored at the unit levels, because there are drugs which require a specific temperature control or a requirement, like, 2 to 8 degrees, or vaccines have a separate specific requirement. So ensuring that they are actually stored at those specific temperature levels. For example, vaccines, it is always advised that you don't store vaccines in any other refrigerators where you store the other drugs, because you would open them again and again, which would affect the temperature conditions of, where vaccines are being stored. So you look at those conditions. There are certain high alert or concentrated electrolytes. You look at them not storing enough outside the pharmacy, because they are dangerous medications. You don't want them to be used inadvertently, so you want them to be stored at particular locations, handled by professional people who know when to issue it and when to use it. You would have a lot of look-alike, sound-alike, you store them separately and things like that. So you would follow those storage instructions which are required by the supplier, which are required by the supplier's manuals, that, this is how you store these medications. Further to that, I think it's also very critical as to the amount of stock that you are storing in your units, because we always believe that a hospital has multiple hospitals within itself. When you look at, every ward is like functions as a hospital, every ICU functions as a hospital. They have their own set of emergency drugs, and what we call as impress stock. They have a lot of impress stock within those units as well. So, what's the quantity of this stock? Because you don't want those stocks to be used, without any reason, or used in a way which you don't expect them to be used there. So you may want to look at, their consumption levels. So here is where, the data analytics comes into picture. We have done it at a larger extent at Apollo. We have looked at, all the utilization levels of these drugs in the last 1 year. Based on that, we decide what kind of drug should be stored in which kind of a ward. And it's even more helpful when you have a cohorting of your wards or your ICUs, wherein you know what kind of patients get admitted to which wards. So you know these are the 10 kinds of medications that would be used in this particular setup, and you get only that kind of a medication stored in that particular area. So that also prevents a lot of pilferages, expiration issues related to the drug especially, and helps to promote patient safety in these areas. The other thing which you need to also look at the stock out situations. Again, there are many conventional methods. There are a lot of people who are talking about blockchain technology today, and there are a lot of other things that we look at as far as the inventory levels are concerned. So the conventional methods, whether you talk of ABC, whether you talk of FSN or any other methods, by which you understand which are my vital, essential or desirable drugs, or fast moving, slow moving, non-moving. You have only those kind of stocks available in the hospital which are critical, which are important, which are required for your organization, and at those levels only which are actually required for that kind of a setup. And I think just to add on that, the other thing which is again very critical is tracking of these supplies in your supply chain process. So as an end user, as an organization, I think even though I would have looked at the product, even though I would have done a vendor rating based on the quality of performance of the product, or based on the supplier's credentials, or based on the deliveries and things that it does for the hospital. But I think it's also important that we look at the vendor, the tracking of the complete supplies, especially the supplies that are at critical risk. So one of the supplies that I would name it as would be definitely vaccines. They being transported at the right temperature, otherwise they are ineffective. So you look at tracking the supply chain process. As a hospitals, we can pick up some of the critical either items, medications, equipments. Look at from the manufacturer's perspective, from there whether it transports to a retailer and a stockist, and then it comes to your hospital. So how that whole supply chain is maintained. What we look at it from Apollo is that we just pick up some examples and we see actually go through the process. So something that is, let's say, in another country, and we can't go and look at their supply chains, we at least ask for them the documents and look at it whether that really makes sense or not. But whatever is within our control, really go to the retailer and the stockist and see how he is storing those. For example, if it's vaccines, how he's actually storing those vaccines. What is the security aspects that he has? How does he transport those vaccines to your hospital? In what kind of a, let's say a container? In what kind of a transport mechanism does he use? Does he lock it? Does he seal it? Are there any chances that, anything could be done on the way? Once it comes to your unit, what kind of checks you do at your hospital? How do you transport it to issue it to different departments, or how do you save it? So I think that, looking at the complete supply chain tracking process, that's very critical, which is very important. That helps you to understand what more could you do as part of your process. And to be very frank, we did find, when we do this kind of an exercise, we do find a lot of opportunities that are there. There was a time when we had to actually reject one whole batch of, especially vaccines or, any other drugs because of some issues with the supplier on the supply chain process. So the critical thing is that, we should just not say that the whole process is working fine, but then it's equally important that we go through the process, pick up samples and see how it is actually happening in our organizations, because that makes a whole lot of a difference.
Right. So thank you, Gaurav, for this. What he's saying is absolutely right, especially when it comes to patient care and patient safety. I think these kind of audits are very important, right from, I think Mr. Sojwal and Dr. Sarvadekal will agree with me, vendor evaluation. First you do identify the right product which is required for institute, then you do a proper vendor identification, then the vendor evaluation, as what Ms. Gaurav said, is very important finally to see that you're getting the right products. Because at the end of the day, you are not selling vegetables, you are selling medicines. So we have to, and you are using consumables and devices which may be probably inserted into the patient's body. So these important aspects in a healthcare is very important and vital. That brings me back again to the transformations which supply chain would bring about to finally arrive at all these important points, you know. So just, I think automation and analytics has been greatly introduced in the last 10 years or so because the data is big. If there is a lot of data, then data accessibility is very easy. If there is good accessibility, actions can be taken and improvisations can be done. So I believe, Mr. Sojwal, if you can highlight, there's something called this agile supply chain transformation matrix, which is sort of used as a quality function deployment or something like that, which can probably help as a tool and a technique to better the supply chain techniques in any organization. I wouldn't know the details, so I think if you can highlight a little bit on that.
Sure. So I think supply chain is always expected to be, very agile. I mean,
Right.
obviously,
Dynamically, yes.
that's one of the let's say pillars on which the whole team always, we run and try to get things done. So if you remember, I talked about governance being very important and monitoring mechanism being very
Right,
important, especially
right.
in the supply chain function. You may have the processes, you may have the definitions of how and what you want to do, but are you really doing it?
Right.
So we talk of big data. We talked of how you can do a lot of data analytics. So what we, for example, do at Manipal is every month we do a lot of data analysis, data crunching actually on the actual consumption of every single drug and every single consumable, going all the way back to which doctor prescribed how much, and is it kind of aligned with what as a business we would also want to do. And incidentally, this is already aligned with the doctor, so it's not something that we are kind of forcing something upon, right? So if we see, for example, certain drugs being used more than certain others within the same molecule, for example, then we try to course correct during the course of the year. That happens every single month, and not just at the central procurement level. We do that at every single hospital, every single unit that does it. So, and then the unit heads basically also track it as a metric in their respective units.
Okay,
About how much of a formulary compliance. For example, if I would do 100% right as per the formulary, then obviously I would be perfect. But then, we don't live in a perfect world. So the metric is to keep improving your compliance to the formulary while not impacting your clinical parameters.
Right.
So that's something we really track on. The second thing that we track on again is as I mentioned earlier, the consumption efficiencies, because we truly want to make sure that what has been defined at the beginning of the year and that has been budgeted for hospitals, unlike other manufacturing industries, for example, we don't have a very clear demand planning that comes from the market, right? We don't know what type of patients are going to come in which month and etc. So we truly have to align our planning of material based on consumption. So we essentially go for consumption planning, and especially when you start doing that, you have to be prepared to limit the leakage. That's what I would really call over here.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Sojwal. Yes, sir, you have.
I'll add to that. In data analytics, the use, like consumption pattern as you said, but the rational use, whether it is being, that can be done by data analysis. For example, one of the hospital I did it, and that is required for your NABH also. That is what we call it as a prescription auditing. Like whether the prescriptions are going rationally or not, that you need to check. Like I did it for one of the pediatric wards for 1 year retrospective study on the prescriptions written by the pediatricians in a pediatric ward. So it was found that all sorts of combinations have been given. Paracetamol, IV is given, paracetamol oral is given, ibuprofen oral is given. So these things you can point it out by actually doing the at site. I will not call it a prescription audit, because audit is a bit what you can say word which will not, but prescription analysis, prescription study, retrospective, and a data analytics for that is a very important, because that will improve your consumption pattern as well as physicians' resistance, which is already there for particular generics or brands. If they have highlighted that these are the things and these are the drug interactions may happen, these are the things you are giving wrong dosage, wrong time. Even nurses, they don't make the chart properly. Like one example, SOS. If the drug is written SOS, but they don't mention the time, or it is written only augmentin, strength is not mentioned. So the patient chart has to be monitored, whether it has been completely documented correctly, and each and every dose has been mentioned. Because that is very important, and that will give you idea about the general consumption pattern and whether your drugs are being used properly and rational use of drug. Especially in case of antibiotics, you need to have an antibiotic policy in place where infection control will give the your susceptibility or resistance pattern in a particular hospital, and it should go with that pattern only. Some antibiotics are resistant in a particular hospital, then you need to have some reserve antibiotics. So these data, in terms of data also, it is very important, and some mechanism has to be developed at the hospital level.
Thank you, Dr.
Can I
Sarvadekar.
just add a point to what they said actually? I think what Mr. Vora also was mentioning was perfectly perfect about, in another way, if you look at the supply chain process, an efficient supply chain process actually directly adds to your bottom line. So I think which is very important that you look at the consumption of material in your hospital, you look at the cost saving initiatives that you have implemented in your hospital, starting from, creating, one of the examples could be ensuring that you have clinical pathways, which we were talking about day before yesterday in the same conference. Where you look at ensuring that you have a pathway designed or a guideline designed for the top 10 or 15 surgeries in your organization. You create kits for those surgeries because every doctor, if you look at, they would have different kinds of consumption patterns and different kind of things that they would want to use during a surgery, which also leads a lot of time to a lot of wastage, items just being thrown about. And what happens at the end of the day, that whole cost gets shifted directly onto the patient's end. While if you have something like a promise or something like a package that you have already told or informed about the patient, then it gets shifted onto the hospital. So in either ways, because of the inefficiency in your process, it's either the hospital pays for it or the patient pays for it. So ensuring that you have clear-cut processes, you have looked at the consumption, utilization, you have spoken to the clinicians or the surgeons and ensured that you have the right and the required amount of material that is available, it would really help a lot in, adding to your bottom lines in the organization.
Thank you very much, Gaurav. I think Dr. Sarvadekar and Mr. Sojwal and Gaurav have highlighted and they've emphasized that supply chain management, I think, is all about basically quality, assessment of quality of the products, and at the end of the day, quantity of the products that you stock. So it covers a lot of logistics, right from procurement to your buildup of stocks and inventory in your systems, and finally disbursement or stocking and dispensing of those materials to the patient. And as he rightly said, the dispensing, when you eventually do it, and if you have a lot of expiry material, a wasted material, condemned material, all these things will end up either as a cost to yourself or as the management of the institute, or it will end up as a cost to the patient burden. So basically, supply chain management is all about mending the broken links. There are a lot of links. It has to become a seamless process. If you agree with me, I think it should be a seamless process. Yes.
I just want to make one more point here. We talked about NLEM, NPPA, DPCO, there are multiple, we're talking of Ayushman Bharat. There are a lot of these regulatory changes that are happening. These changes are going to impact directly a lot of the bottom lines of the hospitals, right? So supply chain efficiencies are becoming increasingly important today. More and more CEOs and CFOs are looking at supply chain to say, hey, how can you bring back more money? Gaurav briefly alluded to it, when he was talking about supply chain. Whatever you do with the supplier, it directly adds, to your bottom line. 100 rupees saved, for example, just hits your bottom line straight away. Whereas a 100 rupees sale, only 5 or 10 rupees out of that, which is really your margin, gets into your bottom line. So there's an important element that supply chain brings, that whatever you do with the supplier goes and hits your bottom line directly. So more and more, it's becoming increasingly important right now to have an efficient supply chain, well networked with the rest of the hospitals, departments, to maximize,
So I think one of those things would be group purchase orders or something like that is one of the techniques which is employed to improvise on your inventory management skills.
Just I wanted to add one thing, because this is the most neglected part in some of the. How many of you have done your warehousing and store fire audit, which is a very important aspect, and that is very regulatory also, which is very important, because something happens, like you must have seen we are stocking most of the spirit, ether, and gauze, bandage, all cotton, inflammable. So that should be segregated separately, and proper fire audit need be done, because whatever require fire extinguisher for your ether and gauze bandage will be different than the other items. And last point is the proper disposal. The procedure has to be there. What type of items are expired items, or so
Yes.
these things should be spelled out and have to be followed, as you rightly said, not just on the chart, but need to be followed and documented. And document only will save you if anything goes wrong.
Yes, I think, thank you, Dr. Sarvarekar. I think all these points are very important. At the end of the day, simply put, supply chain is to get the material and, as we said, give it to the patient. But in between, there are a lot of logistics which need to be looked at. The bigger the organization, the more the logistics will be, the higher the stakes by way of management of the stocks and by way of money. So the core competence, I think it's very important for every healthcare organization to sort of develop the core competencies of the people and their systems, basically enhance them so that you can you call it give more and spend less. Every organization wants to do that. And the bottom line is that you spend less and be more efficient at the end of the day in providing to your customers and gain customer satisfaction at the end of the day. So I think,
We invite some questions.
yes, we can, any questions? Yes, please, Dr. Hardik.
Hello. Yeah, good afternoon. Dr. Sarodekar spoke about the formulary, and Dr. Vora spoke about the benefit optimal supply chain management can bring to your bottom line. Now, my question is concerning these two issues. It's a very peculiar problem which we are facing, and some of the hospitals in Mumbai, especially South Mumbai, must be facing. We do not have a system of full-timer consultants. We have as many as for our hospital, we have 400 consultants, okay? At least maybe 40, 50 physicians. Now everybody would like to prescribe a different brand. That's the challenge, okay? So what we try to do is, we try to cater to the requirements of our consultants with the highest volumes. At least somebody out of those 50 physicians, there is one guy who is bringing maybe 100 patients a month. So I have to, keep him happy. Okay, but the thing is, even with those people, the brands change, like we have flavor of the day in the ice cream shops. Here, they have flavor of the day in antibiotics, So today we have ordered a brand of maybe batch of meropenams. Next week, they change the brand. And all this is influenced by the, companies and medical representatives who keep on meeting them. With such dynamics going on, it's really difficult, and I don't know whether there is any solution to it. Although we try to engage with the physicians and try to keep all these problems at minimum possible, but however, if somebody has also tackled it, some out-of-the-box idea to take care of this, if somebody has.
I think Dr. Hardik has highlighted the problems we are facing in our institute, and I think many other institutes must be facing these problems, where you have an area of doctors who are coming at OPD level, because we have more of brand loyalty in India rather than generic loyalty, So they write brands and then we...
No, we did.
So I'll just talk and then. So I think formulary is easier to manage in IP than in OP. So that's statement number one. It's because obviously, like you mentioned, here we have brands that are more popular than the molecule itself. So I'm not sure what more you can do in an OP other than communicating, but what we do, if I have, for example, in an IP, in formulary, we typically try to do one innovator and two generics as the, and then we choose the formulary based on, as an outcome of a PTC meeting. So we definitely have doctor representations on the PTC. We typically do that once a year. And when you have a doctor representation on the PTC where you actually talk about why you are prescribing certain brands, it's not, when you give numbers to doctors, you see they are very rational and logical in agreeing to your point of view. Because if I have, brand A and a brand B, and both are equivalent in terms of quality practices, in terms of their image in the market, in terms of, their history of not having any adverse, things on the brand and the pricing, of course. So when you give the rationale, then you have a buy-in from the doctors. That is one. Secondly, what we do for OP, because it's a little bit difficult to manage, is we don't limit to just 3. We go to maybe 5 or 6. But again, you can't leave it because to anything and everything the doctor wants, because then you probably will end up having 100. You will lose economies of scale. You will have a little bit of volume of business given to everyone. So their share of business calculations go for a toss. So I think it's once a year if you can have that engagement, specifically talking about, we want to have your inputs while we create the formulary, and then let's follow it together. Then it works. It has worked for us.
I will add to that.
So what we practice, in fact, because we have also encountered many a times such problems. So what we did, we take a commitment from the consultant for a particular brand.
For a period.
And till that next brand when he writes, we request to finish that brand first.
Yes.
And then we will procure your best brand.
Right.
So please keep on writing those brands which you have already.
Right.
So it's probably possible.
It is the commitment. Yes, of course, it is possible only through communication.
No, one is communication. Other is also easier when you do have one hospital, but when you have a network of hospitals, it becomes difficult to do that. Then we probably have to have it, built into the process.
No, every administrator.
So
for
I
that
think what
matter,
we are
wherever,
eventually
yes.
talking is
It is the
trying to
commitment
improvise
that
on
you
your
have to take from the
operational
consultant.
aspects and see how you
that
can
can be
probably
addressed.
better the whole thing. I mean, we do that because we also communicate with the doctors. We take it in writing from them and we tell them that, okay, you're going to write this. Then if we have the stocks, we know that doctor is the one who's asking for it, who had asked for it, now he has changed the flavor. So we go and talk to him again. Whether it be it sutures or be it drugs, whatever it is, or be it consumables, we go and talk to him that please finish that stock first and then we will get you the other stock. So that is a one-to-one basis here. So I think everybody... But I think this is possible in a 250, 300 bedded hospital. But if it is like 1,000 bedded hospital spread over a wide area, then I think these things become a little difficult. Once again, we come to automation. I think we are losing on our
We are
time.
absolutely.
Question, can we permit
Ma'am,
him?
I really don't have room for that. I'm so sorry. We can carry the discussions
Okay,
offline. We'll
so
be wrapping up.
whatever are the
Sorry.
discussions, probably.
So
Thank you
sorry.
so much to the panelists and thank you so much to everybody here for patiently bearing in with us and listening to us.
Hi, Standard Chartered Bank is pioneer in providing digital technology solutions. We have innovated many first-in products. When India launched UPI, we are one of the 4 banks we started UPI technology. We have started in a beautiful API store with a lot of use cases, blockchain innovation further happening. Our front-end platform Straight to Bank is very well accepted by the clients, and now we are developing into a next level, next gen, S2B next gen. And many more innovations through crowdsourcing is happening through our accelerator team, which is the innovation hub for the bank. So you can expect more digital solutions soon. Thank you so much.